I think the bush is connected with our future existence, and that we don't have the bush if we don't look after it, therefore we don't look after ourselves, and the earth is a finite resource and we have to remember that.
Well, I think it's probably one of the most beautiful places on earth. It's available for the community to come and enjoy, but not destroy.
With the rat race we live in now, if people can get out in the bush and enjoy it, I think their life would be much better.
I think that a lot of people really don't know what enjoyment you can get from being in the bush, and we encourage people to come up here, and they inevitably think it's just the most wonderful place when they do come up here.
Mum and I have been interested in conservation ever since I came here 50 years ago. It was a dirty word back in those days. It's like a boy crying in the wilderness to talk conservation.
Approximately 60% of Victoria is in private ownership. Since European settlement, 95% of native vegetation on private land has been cleared for agriculture and urbanisation.
Well, the Wimmera region is a very rich agricultural area, and as such, the large part of it has been cleared for agriculture, particularly the rich plains country, so that all that's left now over very large areas is remnant woodlands, generally very small in area, and other areas that were considered useless for agriculture, such as our salt lakes here.
This area of coastal heathland is particularly valuable in Victoria. There's so little of it left. It has been cleared for agriculture, for settlements over the years, and it's this area in the Anglesea Hills is probably the biggest area of coastal heathlands that we have left in Victoria. It's certainly the most important, and it became very apparent that unless a body of conservationists worked towards protecting the area, that it would all be eventually subdivided and linear development would occur along the Great Ocean Road.
The Trust for Nature, formerly the Victorian Conservation Trust, was established in 1972 to assist nature conservation on private land in Victoria. Since that time, the need to conserve private land remnants has become even more apparent as these areas have continued to suffer from the effects of human interference.
There's a lot of pressure on rural Victoria with increased production demands, and this is also the case with mining and manufacturing. The bush, as far as Australia goes, is being destroyed quicker than it's being replaced, and this is what Pallister's Reserve is so important, because it's become a catalyst in the southwest of Victoria, in that it's being preserved in an area that hasn't got much bush.
I think some of the major issues concerning nature conservation in the northeast of Victoria are things like pest plants and animals, roadside wood gathering in areas of critical habitat for endangered species.
Well, particularly in the Maryborough area, the major issues are mining and forestry industries. Mining is taking out a lot of the gullies and the older timber that we do have left. It's been a bit hard for the forestry industries to get into, and forestry industries are just continually cutting the forest, so that we end up with a forest of young trees, very few trees with hollows. Therefore, birds that use hollows, mammals that use hollows, have no nesting places or roosting places, whatever the case may be.
The Trust for Nature has developed a number of mechanisms by which it achieves its mission. The Trust has acquired over 100 properties protecting more than 7,000 hectares of conservation land in Victoria. Some of these properties purchased by the Trust have been earmarked for transfer into the state's public reserve system, while other purchases have occurred through the efforts of local conservation groups, which have raised the requisite funds through public appeals authorised by the Trust.
In 1989, Bill Pallister managed to contact the Victorian Conservation Trust and wanted to sell his land. There was 1/3 of it bush and the rest was swamps and farm. It was dry sheep farming. And the Trust came down with CNR and looked at the place and found it was worth buying. It was 130 hectares, and they contacted the Warrnambool Nature Reserve Society, which I was president, and we formed a group from local conservation bodies and the public, especially from Port Fairy, and we managed to raise money, and the trust raised money as well, and the government put in. And so we took over this Pallister's Reserve as it was then in 1990.
The Trust for Nature provided a great deal of experience and advice in how to conduct an appeal. They were most supportive throughout the whole process. They also provided the mechanism whereby donors could gain tax deductibility for their donations. And they successfully negotiated with the state government for a 50% contribution towards the appeal.
The Great Ocean Road Committee was formed, bringing together a number of conservation groups, national, state and regional, and worked together and enlisted the help of the then Victorian Conservation Trust. The Trust's help has been invaluable in advice and in managing the money which has come from donations for the purchase of land, in advice on how to go about it, and then in the final analysis last year of when this piece of land was actually purchased. The Trust's help in that was absolutely necessary and quite invaluable.
In some cases, the public interest generated by the purchase of a property has been so great that the Trust has continued to own the land and manage it via an appointed committee of management.
Well, we gradually became a body in our own right, and we've now become incorporated, and we meet at the reserve every fourth Sunday. And we've gradually become involved in the revegetation and direct seeding of the reserve. We've just finished a new work opportunities unemployment scheme, which has seen the reserve been improved in the form of an interpretive centre, and we've been able to now accommodate more volunteers to come down and stay at the reserve and do work as well.
The Trust can enter into covenant agreements with landowners to protect the conservation values of the land forever. Covenants are voluntary and permanent, and are a cost-effective means of ensuring that land is managed for conservation.
I think the applying of conservation covenants is very important, because not all land can be purchased or is available for purchase, and if private owners can be made to realise how valuable their flora and fauna is and how important it is to protect it and to protect corridors and to protect large blocks of native vegetation, I think that's a very important role.
Well, the Trust, once we made up our mind that we were going to put it under the covenant, we had nothing much more to do with it other than sign documents. The Trust took over the whole responsibility of any legal aspects, and they were convinced that we were doing it for the right motives. We wanted at least the bit of ground that we got left for posterity.
Well, the main way they have helped is by covenanting our property, because we wanted to preserve that bit of bush so it would be there forever, and they've done that.
Now it's under Conservation Trust covenant. We're very happy that it's set aside for the future to be managed as it is managed now, and we know that it can't come to any harm.
The Trust has protected over 5,000 hectares through its Conservation Covenant program. The Trust for Nature offers a wide range of services to individuals and groups interested in buying, covenanting and managing private land for conservation.
We've noticed more and more as we've gone along that there's now more workshops in the area. I mean, the Trust runs them, the Greening Australia runs them, and we've had some at Pallister's Reserve, and I think these workshops are very important to spread the message of the revegetation and reverse the degradation of the land.
And I've also found the workshops really good. For example, the grass identification workshop that I attended in Wangaratta, I think that was excellent value. For someone like me who's just learning, that was great. Yeah.
I think the Trust is also a link between the community and government. The Trust for Nature as a statutory authority stays there regardless of which government is in power, and it can link the community to the government, and in that way can play quite an important role in communication between the two sectors.
The Trust is an independent, non-profit organisation which relies heavily on community and corporate support to run its conservation programs.
Well, the Trust has been very supportive, not only in the role of finance, but also in the management plan they've given to us to follow, and that's been really excellent and it's been a great help. And the Trust is always there to help us, and we hope that, and we no doubt that the Trust will always continue to support us.
The Trust needs continuing and increasing financial support in order to improve its success rate and further develop its land purchase program. You can contribute to these programs by sending your donation to the Trust. All donations of $2 and over are tax deductible.
I think we can all play a great role in looking after the nature around us and the areas that are still largely in a natural condition. There's a great deal of work that can be done, and there's a great deal of interest from people from all walks of life in looking after our local bush blocks.
The Trust for Nature. Conservation for landowners.